Welcome back, everyone. Meta has been found liable in two separate cases this week as the social media company faces intense scrutiny over safety and mental health impacts to users. So our legal expert, Whitney Traylor, is here to break down some of what has happened. Now, the cases we're talking about just happened, but there are others that have and many others that will. Tell us what happened today.
Well, today I was on my way in and I got a call from Jack that we just had a verdict in the LA case. So the LA case was one plaintiff who had alleged that she was addicted to social media and they knew she was addicted and it caused her a lot of mental health problems, depression, anxiety, and the jury just came back with a $6 million verdict, $3 million for compensatory damages to essentially make her whole and $3 million of punitive damages to punish her. And so that was very significant because these social media companies have defended themselves for years and years and years under Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act, which was passed in 1996, which said, look, we're not liable for what happens once you come to the table. We just bring people to the table. We're not liable for the content. And they've gotten away with it. So this is a monumental inflection point in social media for sure.
Yeah, I mean, is this setting a precedent? There's hundreds of these cases out there. Do you think that this is just going to continue?
Yes, this was a bellwether case. So they were really testing this out. And this LA verdict was one plaintiff. But in New Mexico, just yesterday, there was another case that the AG brought based on consumer protection laws, essentially. And there they were saying that the children were not safe. They were being sexually exploited. And they called it Operation Metaphile. And so what they did was they purported to be children, and they actually arrested 3 men because all these men are coming to the table exploiting these children. Yeah. And so in the New Mexico jury, they came back with a $375 million verdict. And so that was a penalty for each violation that essentially amounted to $375 million. But a lot of people are saying, look, that's really nothing. Meta had $201 billion in revenues last year. They're valued at $1.5 trillion. And after yesterday's verdict, the stock went up 5%, which suggests that the stockholders didn't really care about that. But again, this is going to be the first of many, many lawsuits in this vein.
I was surprised at the $3 million, the damages, and then punitive $6 million total. I thought that was low. You have the New Mexico case where the jury, really hit them there. There are going to be, you said, thousands of cases to follow. We've known for years social media is not good for young people's mental health. I raised 2 kids through social media, and I could see it myself. They're either fear of missing out, or they're being bullied, or whatever. You go on and on and on. Eating disorders. I think the woman who just won this dealt with that. How are these companies defending themselves in these cases? What are they saying? Well,
Mark Zuckerberg got up and he testified in the LA trial, and he said that the science doesn't necessarily prove it. He cited the there's a leading study in the psychiatric industry that says, well, we're not sure about social media. They even, in the LA case with the one plaintiff, they said, well, she had a lot of other family issues that led to it, and they tried to argue that social media was an outlet. Now, their strongest argument was that her doctor, she had been to see a therapist, did not say anything about social media. She didn't raise that issue. But there was so much evidence that it was addictive. And this is similar to big tobacco in the 90s, or even more recently with opioids and the pharmaceutical companies, where they knew the addictive nature, but they were still targeting these young folks. And the other issue was you have to be 13 to use these. Right. And they knew that 30% of their users were under 13. So they were aware that it was being used improperly. They were aware there was so much expert testimony. Both trials lasted 5 to 6 weeks. So there was a lot of expert testimony to say the damage that the social media is doing.
30% is wild. I mean, to really think about that. Obviously, appeals are coming. Do you think this gets reversed, these decisions?
It's going to be interesting. So in the LA case, I think it was against Google, which owns YouTube. I think YouTube may have a stronger case under the Communication Decency Act because they really bring people to the table. Whereas Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp, but it was really just about Facebook and Instagram. They had more knowledge. I think they're going to be more culpable. So there could be a reversal, but there's going to be so many cases. So I suspect there may be a settlement during these appeals. But I think there's hundreds of cases already lined up. And again, they're making it known these are bellwether cases. We're testing it out. And a lot of experts, 4 years ago, they would have said, we wouldn't even get to trial. So now that you have two verdicts back to back, this is very significant.
And while we're passing out blame, I mean, the regulation of the social media industry was never really done well to begin with by Congress. So this is a reckoning. People are going to have to deal with this because when you watch what it does to children, it's awful. So, I mean, everybody's looking to point the finger. At the end of the day, we just want kids to be healthy.
Right, and there was so many issues related to, I mean, every case, there's two aspects. There's liability, did they do something wrong? And then there's damages. How much did it harm people? And there were suicides, there's body dysmorphia. I mean, when Mark Zuckerberg testified, they had the filters up, and the one young girl who was under 13 had 30 pictures up all with the filters. And they asked him about it, and he said, kind of hummed and hawed. And she would leave class to go into the bathroom to see how many likes she got. And they knew, I mean, there were internal documents where they would say, we need to go after these tweens. We want to act as a babysitter when parents are cooking and cleaning. So that was the issue, was that they knew, and that's where the culpability came in.
Yeah, in some cases, addictive doesn't even begin to describe it.
Correct.
Dangerous, dangerous. All right, Whitney Traylor, thank you for the breakdown. We appreciate you.
Sure, good to be here.